I'm ashamed of those moderators at ABC News. They did exactly what their bosses wanted them to do. The person who runs ABC News is a close personal friend of Kamala Harris, that is responsible for Kamala Harris and her husband meeting. And they did Dana Walden's bidding tonight. It was 3 against 1 on that debate stage this evening. Hi, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly, a special program tonight for you reacting to the debate. It was 3 against 1. It's very easy to look like you know what you're doing when both moderators are entirely on your side. Trump did the best he could under the circumstances, but it really was like 3 fighters in the ring pummeling one opponent. And Trump tried to take them all on. He did fine. He did as best as he could. He was thrown a few times to the point where he was unnecessarily defensive and he was getting angry. And so was I. Were you? This was a mistake to trust ABC News with this debate. The Republicans must learn from this mistake. The same way the Democrats never agree to do anything with moderators they don't entirely trust. This should be the last time the Republicans ever do this. Because those 2 moderators tried to sink Donald Trump tonight. The numerous fact checks on what he said and none on what she said. None. I don't remember a single fact check of anything she said, and she lied repeatedly. She just got away with it. In the moderator's eyes, that was Donald Trump's job to fact check her. That's correct. Except you didn't employ that same tactic when it came to Trump, and you accused him of lying even when it was your opinion that he lied. When Trump tried to say that his comment that he lost 2020 by a whisker was him being sarcastic, David Muir actually injected saying, I didn't hear sarcasm. Who gives a shit what you heard? Who died and left you political analyst in chief? You're supposed to be the objective news anchor of World News Tonight. That's a comment you make to your significant other, David. Not on the debates. It didn't sound like that to me. Shut up. That is inappropriate. It's not for you to make that call. Leave it up to Kamala Harris. Leave it up to people like me who will play the soundbite and let the audience decide. But you were out of line, and they did it to him over and over and over again. And the worst piece of all of this is the obvious tactic by ABC News, which was as follows. Mr. Trump, you said something incredibly controversial and terrible. Let me remind you of what it was. Do you have any regrets or thoughts on how terrible you were? Trump answers. Vice President Harris, how bad is Trump? And then she'd answer. It happened over and over again. That was the format. Mr. Trump, you're a piece of shit. Kamala Harris, isn't he a shit? Thank you. It was incredible. And then anything Trump said, fact check, fact check, fact check. And their fact checks were full of shit. I'm swearing even more than normal right now because I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm angry at them, at ABC, at my industry that I want nothing to do with. And I've never been happier to be outside and be able to say how I truly feel. And yes, even with some colorful words, because that's what the situation calls for. They're trying to steal this election. They're openly working to sink him. I think it was so bad, their bias against him and toward her, that it's going to backfire. I actually think the American public is going to see through this, and there's probably going to be some empathy for Trump. No fair-minded person could think anything other than that they were in the tank for him, and it was 3 against 1 on that stage tonight.
So I'm finding out this morning that one of the moderators, the lady that was up there, is actually Kamala's sorority sister. So you have the sorority sister, and then you have her best friend that is one of the execs. So now we know why there was a 3-on-1 debate. So we know that it was a biased debate. No questions asked. So you're celebrating for nothing, because she never did get to her policy. She never answered any questions. They never fact checked her on anything. I want to bring something else to your attention, because a lot of people are distorted in knowing what a real leader is. See, Trump is a real leader. A real leader is not perfect by any means. For my Christians out there, you know David in the Bible wasn't perfect. You know Paul wasn't perfect. Noah wasn't perfect. Solomon wasn't perfect. Abraham wasn't perfect. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. King Cyrus. None of those leaders were perfect, but nonetheless, they were leaders. See, a leader shows up. They don't hide from the people. She's saying that she's a part of the people. Then where were you for 3.5 years? You didn't show up. You didn't show up for the families that was in Afghanistan. You didn't show up. All you did was hid behind the keyboard all weekend and talk about the real leader that showed up. You didn't show up to the border. Trump went to the border, even though he wasn't president. He showed up to the border. And for all you black people out there, she didn't even show up to the NABJ. Trump showed up to the NABJ. You know, so the only leader that's perfect was Jesus Christ. But even back then, in his day, they would have called him an imperfect leader, because he didn't concede to their itching of ears and what they wanted to do. He wasn't all about optics. All he was about his Father's business, standing on the truth. That's what Jesus was about. He's the only perfect leader. But you know, Satan, they manipulate you with flattery. That's what Satan does. He makes you, they polish themselves up to deceive you. See, Satan is the father of lies. Jesus is the conveyor of truth. And that's what we need during this time. It's time to rise up and speak out against the evil of the atrocities of this party. The manipulation, the gaslighting, it has to stop. And black people, y'all are sitting up here and y'all supporting this stuff. And this woman said that she wasn't doing nothing for black folks. She was locking up black men in jail left and right. And y'all still want to back her. So she's saying that it's time for a change. She is completely right. I 100% agree. It's time for a change, and it's time to get your administration, fire her administration, and move in Trump into the White House. Y'all, so it's time to put America first instead of having America last. So y'all, let's get out there. We stay prayed up. We need to pray during these rough times, and just keep your head on the swivel. And I'll check in with y'all later. All right.